Welcome to Peaceful Power Project, a podcast dedicated to physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being. I am so excited and grateful to introduce you to Ryan Jolley today. Oh, if you don't already know him, because I feel like he is a very dynamic human who is well known and loved, at least in this probably wider than this, but in this Nashville running community. So you may know Ryan Jolley. If not, I'm honored to introduce Ryan Jolley. We met. This was almost a dream come true, Ryan. So this podcast is near and dear to my heart. I share things with the intention of, I wouldn't even say like maybe helping, inspiring, motivating, connecting, even just connecting. Connecting is like the base. And how Ryan and I met was that he came into my direct messages after listening to an episode, finding the episode through researching the Flying Monkey Marathon, and just left a message like I was looking for things about the marathon. I found your podcast, and maybe I will do it one day. And so that started our conversation. Um, when we were chatting before I pressed record, I said that every direct message exchange, every face-to-face interaction, which was at the Nashville Running Film Festival, Nashville Trail Running Film Festival, and then meeting again at the Monkey with his beautiful family. Everything he says, I'm inspired to ask like more and more questions and learn more and more about his journey. So without further ado, that was very long, but without further ado, first, thank you for being here, Ryan. Um, and I would love to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself.
Yeah,
Um, who are you? What's important to you? And yeah, so happy you're
wonderful.
here.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it so much. I just before this conversation, I went back. I was like, when did I first reach out to Sarah? And it was exactly January 6th. I was like, wow, I can't believe it's been that long already. So yeah, my uh, I'm from Nashville, born and raised in Nashville. Um, I went to public school here in Nashville. When I was in fourth grade, my public school teacher noticed that I started holding my books closer and started sitting closer to the board. And you have the hearing and vision tests that they do in school. And I went to one of those, and they were like, "Wow, he's really struggling to see stuff." And at that time, they determined after going to Vanderbilt that I was diagnosed with a rare genetic retinal disease called Stargardt's. It's a juvenile form of what's called macular degeneration, which there's a very common age-related form of that. So very quickly at age 10, I lost most of my vision. So I have no central vision, and then my peripheral vision is 2800. And so for folks who 2800, what does that mean? The what someone can see from 800 feet away with 20/20 vision, I'd have to be 20 feet away to see it with the same level of clarity. So it's legal blindness. I don't drive, don't read normal size text, all those sorts of things. So yeah, that's I feel like a kind of a central part of my identity growing up has been my vision impairment and growing up low vision, which then kind of found its way as a theme in like athletics because at that time when I was diagnosed, I was playing baseball. I started missing balls at third base, started batting poorly. And so it really began to affect like, hey, what can you do athletically? Was playing, some like rec league, church league basketball. Started, missing the ball when it was passed to me and things like that. It's pretty fortunate that I discovered skateboarding, became a skateboarder. It was very like independent. You kind of learn by feel and these sorts of things. But then in seventh grade, I had um, I think what it was you do your fitness test in
Yep.
in PE class, and they have everybody run a mile, and I feel like it's kind of like the illuminator of who is fit and who's not, and it's like the thing that everybody kind of dreads that year. And I ran the mile with no problem. And uh, the coach, he said, "Hey, um, I think you should come join the track team." And so I said, "I have no interest in that. I'm a skater. Like I had long hair, you know. I was like, how's my long hair and all my like? How can you run in skate shoes?" But I did that, and he very quickly, um, there were concerns about like, hey, will you be able to run the track? Like, what does that look like when you're in traffic with people, and different trying to figure out which events to run. So I was a 800 meter and a 1 mile runner, and um, found pretty quickly that I could adapt and navigate that fairly well. And so he gave me opportunity and space and believed in me and encouraged me and really kind of set the foundation for later what would kind of be like the place that I returned to. So yeah. Um, so who am I? Intro. Legally blind runner guy from Nashville. How about that? Like I
That's
feel like yeah, there you
that's
go.
perfect. And you're completely correct. Like, well, it's your lived experience, but that is a huge part of your story, who you are, how you
Yeah.
identify. I'm curious, I did hear you say like that will be a precursor for later on.
Mhm.
Um, but I just wanted to pause, and I do apologize if the question comes off like not
No,
that
no worries.
informed, but um do you feel like you said I could feel into things like with skateboarding, you could feel into
Hmm.
it more. Do you
Yeah.
think there are like heightened abilities that do come in your experience in athletics or the sport you've
Yeah.
chosen now of running?
Right. That is a good question. I don't think it's uninformed at all. I think um, you know, everybody, regardless of ability, like they tend to have some like natural nuance to how they gravitate into whatever endeavor that they're doing. And so I think for me, like having low vision, I wouldn't say that it like my other senses are more heightened towards being able to skateboard well or like feeling the board better, or when I'm running, I don't think I like sense like heart rate better or anything like that or like, but I do think that there's some aspects to it that that just makes you more keenly aware, you know. I wouldn't say that it disproportionately makes like other data streams that you're processing better as much as you just become more reliant on them. And so, in running, for instance, I think a lot of folks have that experience of, or like go through that journey of having headphones on and not having headphones on because they want to be able to hear around them, but then like wanting to be able to hear stuff. And for me, it was pretty clear early on that I would never be comfortable having like AirPods in my ears and not
Hmm.
being able to like rely on the sense of being able to hear footsteps behind me or I don't, yeah. So it's well, I'll give you, foreshadowing, but whenever you're running through the parks and there are squirrels and deer around, it's such a fun experience for me to like be running and hearing something hopping through the trees or like the leaves alongside and not being able to see it, but knowing that it's so close and even being able to start identifying like I know that that's the sound of a squirrel hopping through the leaves compared to the sound of a deer walking through the leaves or, a human running on the trail behind me, coming up behind me. So, yeah, I definitely kind of, I don't know, key into those things and become maybe the best way to put it is like, I think I'm just become more mindful of some of those other sensory inputs.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. No,
Yeah.
yeah, chipmunk versus squirrel
Uh-huh.
versus deer.
Yep.
Um, there will be times where other people will be in their conversations on their, hearing on their devices, moving through the parks. And I'm like, do you see that deer? And I will just
Yeah. Yeah.
point it out because
Uh-huh.
you know, um, the awareness is elsewhere placed.
Right.
So
Yep.
thank you for sharing that connection
Yep.
to greater awareness. And that it's not such a technical thing like you hear
Mhm.
better to
Mhm.
compensate. So
Right.
it's just a general mindfulness and awareness.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say this here. I think, one of the if I one of the nice things, I guess, about having low vision is this sense in which you get to actually kind of choose the interpretation of the world around you. So like I know I can't see that bird that's over there well, but I you create like a mental concept of it. So like you get to choose how beautiful the world is and like how beautiful you create the concept. And so yeah, there's a sense in which like uh, if you're at a nice vista or an overlook and there's like a beautiful skyline out there, I know that even though I can't see that skyline or that ridge line with like, I can create a mental picture of it that is as beautiful to me as maybe the real experience is to someone who can see it clearly. So it is kind of cool in that way.
Yeah, that just brings me to like just a space of connect, as I shared, like connection being almost like the foundation of everything. You're connecting to the actual, right?
Yeah.
Sunset,
Yeah.
skyline, not a visual representation of a sunset or a skyline, but how like powerful and either an energy or an essence or like an experience of a sunset of nature. Um, yeah, so that's really beautiful to think about. Um, with that, so running, starting in track, and then you spend a lot of time on the trails, out in nature. What's the space between, and again, to whatever
Sure.
amount you want to share,
Yeah.
but from that experience to like, I'll say grown up Ryan. I have no idea. I don't
Yeah.
know how old you are. Like so
I'm still
grown
trying
up.
to grow up. I'm still working on it.
Yeah, right. I don't, that's not even a good example, but
Yeah.
like in the future, like
Yeah.
right now, right?
Yeah.
What kind of space was that in terms of, so it seems like there was like a natural
Yeah.
athleticism or draw to sports.
Sure.
Did that, as it does for some people, like were there gaps in
Yep.
that? Were there, y- yeah, so
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
open that up.
It's almost like because I've never like fancied myself an athlete or being drawn to sports even as much as like I have always kind of been drawn to like this battle with myself on things. And so I think, in skateboarding and running the distance races, like I never even really thought about like being competitive with the other people on the track as much as it was like I'm running this thing as fast as I can run it and as well as I can run it. And I'm going to like train for that against me. And in skateboarding, it was very similar. I only ran track in middle school because it then began to interfere with skateboarding time and all the other fun things that you do as a teenager, right? But in skateboarding, it was very similar where when when you're trying to do, a trick off of like a loading dock behind, some store and you're working on it from 9 p.m. until 2 o'clock in the morning, just over and over, like throwing yourself off of this loading dock, trying to land this trick, trying to get it on camera. Um, there, like you develop this like battle against yourself and work through so many emotions that directly translate into the running world, where like in one space of that session of trying to get this trick down or land this trick, you are excited and elated and trying really hard and like you're pumped to be there. You go through this other like part of that session where you just hate the act of doing this and like you just want to get it done. And then you might go into this space where like all of a sudden you're euphoric again and like you can't believe that you actually feel good after you've like busted your face on the ground and stuff. So in that sense, I've always kind of been drawn to like this battle against myself in that way, and I think it's kind of shown itself in those two different forms. So I'll say this though, as a teenager, you know, navigating teenage years and early adulthood is I think the most difficult thing that anybody ever does in their life. Maybe I don't know,
No,
but
then
it's
being parents of
parents.
adolescent.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Going
Yeah,
through it yourself and then having them.
there we go. There we go. Yeah, ours are. We have an 11-year-old and boy girl twins that are 9. So like, yeah, I guess we're on the cusp of this next hardest
Who
season.
knows? Maybe it'll be easy breezy.
Yeah,
But To your
right,
comment, if I don't know anything harder than going through that
right.
time,
Uh-huh.
I'm finding parenting,
Okay,
but
okay.
please continue.
Yeah. So as a teenager and like navigating that as a teenager that's low vision and the exciting things of being a teenager, getting your driver's license and that being something that was not going to be having to navigate not being able to drive and get to the parties on your own and all that sort of stuff and um, you know dating or whatever and making eye contact with people like it's all those little things that kind of add up to like mental and emotional tolls. And I always found that I would return to, and I'll say this, I lost my dad. He passed away when I was 14. So like during that season, I leaned on skateboarding in this way where like I would go out and I would skateboard and I would work on this thing, this trick or whatever it was, getting better at this thing. And it was a like a therapeutic activity for me. Um, and then as I got a little bit older into like later high school and early adulthood, I circled back around to running at times to do the same thing. Like I wasn't skateboarding as much, but like I still had that like inner need of like, what's that physical thing that does this mental therapeutic, like spiritual and emotional benefit for me. And so I would go through these little seasons where, I'm running 3 miles a day or whatever it is. And then I'd stop doing that. And then all of that stuff would kind of like accumulate and I'd start to feel that need again of like, okay, like I need to get this out in some way. And so I'd maybe start picking up running again. And so I did that on and off through, teens and early adulthood. And then as I, got through college and started career stuff and started a family and got married, I think it went to the back burner of like what my needs were to take care of myself in that way, which then resulted in like, poor physical health, poor mental health, poor emotional health, um, all those things. And I think I always was kind of like in the space of like, I know it's there and I need it, but I'm not committing the time to it until last year. So last
So,
year's when things started to turn.
so it really was that recent that
Yeah,
all kicked back in. Oh,
yeah,
so was it last year kind of, well, is it before the monkey idea?
yeah,
Just
absolutely.
okay, so yeah,
Yeah,
let's go a little bit before that.
yeah, absolutely. So, I was an outdoors person. I enjoyed kayaking, being in the woods. As hard as it may be to believe, I started turkey hunting when I was a late teenager. So like I was in the woods with a sighted a sighted family member who was helping me like learn how to hunt. And what I loved about it wasn't like the act of actually like killing a turkey. How appropriate that it's Thanksgiving week, but that part wasn't what was so drawing to me as much as it was the same thing that found in skateboarding and running. Like there's an intense level of commitment to battle with yourself to like get up at 3:30 in the morning, hike out 2 miles, get settled in an hour before daylight in the middle of the woods and nowhere. Uh, you wake up to the sunrise, the birds start waking up. Like it's a very spiritual and like emotional and mental healing thing. And so, you know, spring turkey hunting season kind of like played that same role for me during that time where, once a year I was getting out and doing that. But what was happening and I was finding was that during that 1 6 week period when spring turkey season was open, I was becoming less and less capable of doing it because my health was deteriorating. And so then I wasn't enjoying it as much and like going through that process of climbing up and down ridges and, you know, climbing through creeks to sneak up on a bird in the woods, as odd as that sounds. But so I wasn't enjoying that as much. And then uh, in in early to mid 2024, I was in a space where I don't know, maybe it's like the midlife crisis or something. I was, 37 at that time, 36. And so started having that moment, and the kids are getting older. And I think that's probably some of it too. Like wanting the kids to see me be proud of a version of me that later on they would want to emulate, right? And so um, kids do such a good job of holding up a clear mirror of reflection to you, and I think that began to really weigh in on me. And also, having lost when my dad passed away, he was 52 years old. At 36, 7, you're getting so much closer to that. So I think that like that close reality of mortality is kind of always lingered there. Maybe I always live on like an existential crisis ledge of some sort. Um, but yeah, at that time, I began to think long and hard about if if I was going to take back a control of my life that was a version that I wanted it to be, that I could be proud of with myself, then now was going to be the time to do that. And so I had, I'd gained a lot of weight. I was, severely overweight. I was sucking down caffeine early in the morning so that I could get into the day of putting on the suit and go into the office in in a work setting that maybe wasn't the best for me personally from like a mental emotional health standpoint. I just don't flourish well under fluorescent lights with cubicles. Maybe that
Oh no.
I'm good to go. I'm ready.
So we had a technological difficulty, which happens when we do such things. However, I haven't looked at the time since Ryan and I started this conversation, and I was actually just about to look at the clock because Ryan said the most amazing thing, and I wanted to remember exactly when he said it, something to the effect of, it's not going to be a direct quote. It seemed like I am not someone who flourishes in fluorescent lights. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like what a profound like thing to say. I am not sure if there are people who actually do, if we really look at the state of the world. Um, so that's where we were. Ryan, you were sharing just about how things were kind of coming to a head with
Yeah.
physical health and then the things that follow with physical health, which is like mental and emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. So, during, I, I'd say during the 15-ish years, like early 20s to my now like late 30s, during that time, Sarah, I was on the very unhealthy train of like, um, try to pull myself up by the bootstraps, like get out there, cut the calories, count the macros, start working out hard, do that so hard for like 3 months, lose 30 pounds, and then like go right back into the coping mechanisms of daily life and stress. And so, I yo-yoed up and down during that 15 years, weight wise and health wise, so many times. And I say that because I know I'd mentioned like getting to a point of deciding to have gastric bypass surgery, and um, it wasn't like my first choice. So many times I had kind of done this path of like up and down dieting and disordered relationship with food and with myself and my own body and health and all these sorts of things. And I I found myself, just like I'd mentioned, going turkey hunting, like not being able to enjoy that activity of being out in the woods as much. Getting in and out of my kayak became so much more difficult. Spending more time in my kayak became more difficult. Running with my kids in the front yard as they are learning to run became more difficult. And so that decision point of, I need something that's beyond my willpower and beyond my control to provide me opportunity to reset. And so the decision for me then was to have the gastric bypass surgery as a way of taking it out of my hands for what I can do to sabotage myself in this situation, and to really provide this hard reset on my health, and like a hard forced reset that I would have to become very mindful of literally every bite that I ate, because every bite became so much more meaningful and valuable. And so when I made the decision to do that, first I'll jump ahead. It was the best decision I ever made physically. Um, but it then made me come to grips with, you know, my relationship with food and addiction to sugar and the use of caffeine and all the things to try to accommodate other areas of life. And so when I did that, I also simultaneously began kind of working through a mindful eating program, which was invaluable to me to really become aware of just how much I appreciated every bit of food that I could eat after that point. Um, and and so yeah, that started my journey. And I had that surgery in September of 24, 2024. So September 2024, I have the surgery. Was out of work for about 4 weeks. Began to really, like, during that time, think big picture about, you know, holistically what I wanted my life to be about, and like what I'm focusing my time on, and what I'm valuing. And um, I started talking to a friend of mine who I'd worked with, who he had been with me in like my most unfit times and had seen me try to pull myself up by the bootstraps. And uh, it was funny because I remember at one point I told him, I'm gonna run 5K a day every day for a month, or excuse me, I'm gonna move 5K because I couldn't run from here to my mailbox. I'm gonna go 5K a day every day for a month, and by the end of this month, I just want to run 1 mile under 10 minutes. That was like my goal. This was maybe a year in 2023 ish, somewhere in there. And and so, that's a good example of where like I was still trying so hard to like force this thing of like, okay, Jolly, like, listen to the people saying stay hard and all this sort of stuff. Like, trying to be in that space, and that didn't work. That wasn't working for me. And uh, fast forward, um, that friend was also then my sighted guide for the second 15 miles of the race. And during that time, we had some pretty surreal moments of saying, look at this journey that we've had in such a short amount of time, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually, and finding gratitude for like this moment that we're getting to have together. Anyways, um, did that. Right after that, I began like refocusing on what my values were. Being outdoors is to me one of the most important things. It's like my family, my loved ones, people, relationships with people, the ones close to me, relationship to nature, and the relationship to myself. Like that was kind of what I condensed down to being what's most important to me. And so I said, I'm going to restructure my life so that I can focus on the relationships with myself, my relationships with the people around me, and the relationship that I have to the outdoors. And um, that that unfolded in a way where I unexpectedly kind of found my way into new communities of people who valued similar things. And um, so I started thinking, like, what does that look like? I just started spending time during my 6 week recovery after surgery, walking the street that I live on, um, and became, I think, known as like the peace sign streetwalker guy on the road. Cars come by, there he goes, giving his peace sign to people, and just became very like grateful and aware that of being able to be outside and being able to feel the sunshine. And that was during cold months. And so uh, I started, I wasn't running, but I started rucking some. And so like I had this thing of like, man, I'm losing weight pretty drastically because my calories are really restricted. And then I started like putting weight on my back. I was like, there's a lot of irony here. Like every pound I'm losing, I'm putting a pound on my back. Um, and so I started rucking and enjoyed rucking a lot and started feeling stronger and becoming aware of where on my body I was becoming stronger and how I felt walking up a hill. And um, I thought I want to do something that that kind of celebrates this. And so I signed up to do a half marathon rucking event um, on the Fiery Gizzard Trail. And so it kind of like for me was encompassing of the things that I value: being outdoors, being on trails, being with people who are trying to do things that are, beyond some boundaries that they may have or others have. And so uh, I've talked a buddy of mine into doing it with me so that he could be a sighted guide for me on that trail. Um, I was, I think I was audacious and naive to think that I could so easily hop into something and do that. So in preparing for that, I think, I rucked with like 35 pounds for about 10 miles one time, and then did not conceptually understand how that would translate to rucking on the Fiery Gizzard Trail for a half marathon. And at that time, my nutrition, still figuring that out. That was um, had the surgery in early September, and that race was like about this time of year. It was like November 20, somewhere in there. And um, I I think I got to about mile 8, and at that time, like right after surgery, you have to really focus on your protein intake and like keep a lot of protein up. And so there's just not a lot of room for carbs, and like it's you're it's such a harder path to do the nutrition thing after a surgery like that than it is if you've never had the surgery. So I wasn't understanding and learning that, but at mile like 8, um, I had zero energy in the tank because I haven't been eating carbs for 6 weeks, and didn't have a whole lot of calories going in. And so at like mile 8 or 9, right where it goes out to Ravens Point, uh, ended up making the decision that like I was going to have to DNF because I may get myself into a situation where I'm behind time. And what I didn't want to do was put the race director and volunteers in a situation where I'm creating an issue for them because I wasn't being smart and rational about my limitations or what I should do. So, you know, there's part of me inside that goes, oh, I could have done it. Yeah, maybe, but maybe not. I could have gotten into that last gorge, my blood sugar drop again, and all of a sudden it's after dark, it's cold, they're having to come in. And now what have I done? I've created a situation where the next time a blind athlete reaches out and says, "Hey, I want to do your race," they might be like, "Oh man, remember the last experience we had?" So I made the decision, like I'm bound, I'm getting out. So my first event was a DNF at mile 8 on the Fiery Gizzard. Um, I think it was exactly what I needed, and it taught me so much about relating to myself. And so I came back after that, started working much closer with a nutritionist and a coach, and kind of moving through nutrition after that. And then on the very last day of the year, on New Year's Eve, uh, my wife and I we went back to Fiery Gizzard, and we went and completed that last section that I didn't get to do. And so it was like this little capstone of like, okay, I've grown a lot since that DNF to this point, and I'm in a much healthier place of recognizing like where my abilities are, and I've started like training in a way that's going to prepare me and having much better realistic goals. And so that was on December 31st that we went back and did that. And then Sarah, on January 6th is when I reached out to you. So for New Year's Day to January 5th, I guess I talked to my buddy, the one who cited God for me. His name's Blake Shearer. He's an incredible guy. Um, he's cross country coach out of the Cookeville area. He believes in people, and he believes in people doing hard things. And I mean, what more do you want from a coach than somebody who believes that you can do more than what you think you can do and will be there with you along the way to do it? And that he's that guy. So I think I had messaged him and said, "Hey, um, bucket list thing from an early age as a middle schooler. I thought one day I could run a marathon. I just turned 38. This is the year. Like it's happening this year. Um, will you be on this journey with me to get me to that point?" And he said, "Yeah, start researching and looking at races and tell me like races that you're thinking about, and let's have a conversation about it." So, you know, I think it's probably right on brand for me that I didn't go, okay, well, what's the easiest first marathon to do? Like, where's a nice flat one that's whatever? Um, I started just searching like, what are the ones that are nearby? Because that was really, I was like, what's around me? I don't necessarily want to travel, or it causes more logistical things. It's like, what's around? I saw the list of ones that were around. Um, I saw that and I was thinking like I think spring is too soon. Like I don't want to try to do this thing that's it's January now. I don't want to try to do a spring marathon when I want to be in this like long burn of preparing for something long term and staying focused and committed long term. I felt like I could probably easily slip back into the Ryan who could like power through for 3 months and like do it all by will, but not by commitment to consistency or something like that. And like look at it too short term. So started looking at fall marathons that were around, saw that there was one that the name stood out to me. I was like, what's a flying monkey? Looked at the website and I was like, okay, this like dichotomy, like the paradoxes here of silliness and seriousness and um, the the level of audacity, but also the level of humility it takes to approach something like this. It spoke to me. It had all the right vibes, right? Like it. I felt like it was a reflection in so many ways of kind of who I was. And so the first thing I did, I was like, okay, read it, and I was like, what have other people said about it? And so I think I Googled or YouTubed like Flying Monkey Nashville, and I found your reflection of your experience with it. And and let me pause there because one of the first things my coach Blake had me do was sit down and like articulate my why and like spend time thinking about why do you want to run a marathon, and really trying to like uncover the purpose behind some of this and write it out. And so I spent several days during that time like you know working on it. And what I came down to and what has continued to be kind of this like mantra of those moments when things are hard and repeated to myself during long runs and all that, um, is this uh, that I am responsible for, that I am capable of, and that I am going to be unwaveringly committed to becoming the very best version of myself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And I'm going to demonstrate my progress towards that by running the Flying Monkey Marathon. And so um, crafted that why statement, Sarah, and then I had like sat on that and I was like, this is it. I mean, it covers like, I know I'm responsible for it. Nobody else can. Like nobody, this is on me. It can't be for my kids. It can't be for my wife. It can't be for, it has to be for me. Um, I'm capable of it. I, I know that I can do it. Like it's in there. I just don't have the confidence yet to say that I can do it now. But other people believe in me. There's no evidence that says I'm not capable of it. And I'm I am now committing myself to not straying from the commitment to doing it. And it's going to be in that order. It's going to be mental health. I'm going to do this for like my mind and um, and the way in which I relate to myself in that way. It is going to be for emotional well-being and my ability to maintain stability and gratitude for the highs and the lows and experience them for what they are and be grateful for the highs and the lows. It's going to be for my spiritual well-being and you know for me a lot of that revolved around becoming becoming aware of the allness and the grandeur that exists in nature, and also the way in which there's something inside of us that can inspire awe even for ourselves. So, like, can I do something? Can I become something that when I look at it, I go, man, that is awesome. And I'm proud of that. And what that means spiritually. And last, intentionally, was physically because I didn't want it to be um, about like getting fit and then maybe those things dragging along as much as like I wanted those outcomes and I wanted physicality to kind of be the medium through which it happened, and because I knew that that's where it needed to be for me. So, Sarah, I say that because that was my why statement, and I'm going to do it through the Flying Monkey Marathon. And then I watched your reflection, and I mean, you didn't say it exactly that way, but things that you said, I mean, I could like direct like dot line over to my why statement of why I wanted to do it. And I thought, okay, like I see myself in her and her experience. And I think I'm now on a journey similar in ways to a journey that she has already ventured. And so, yeah, I shot you a message and said, thank you for your video. It is something I'm looking at it. And honestly, I don't even know when I signed up for the Flying Monkey after that. I think it was several months later. Like I signed up for uh, I'm trying to think. So after that moment, I I haven't mentioned I've mentioned sighted guiding. So there's an organization called Achilles International, and we have a Nashville chapter. And the Nashville chapter of Achilles International, they meet in West Nashville every week. They um, they build social connection and opportunity for people with disabilities to experience recreation, and they connect sighted guides with blind and low vision runners or runners of different abilities who need a guide and need a companion for getting out and having opportunity and access to be able to move their bodies in outdoors. Um, so through Achilles, I started running with them as much as I could and becoming more a part and signing up for races with them, and uh, did a couple of 15Ks. Like it was still cold, and then I think I did my first half marathon was the rock and roll marathon or half marathon. Um, did that, enjoyed that experience so much. And I think it was maybe after that that I actually signed up for the Flying Monkey. It was like right in that time frame when I was like, I'm pretty sure that's what I'm going to do. It's the one that I'm like eyeballing. I'm doing these things towards that. And Blake, he built my running plan leading up to the half marathon. So it kind of gave me this like, case of like, okay, if I'll do this, 12-week running plan up to the half marathon and preparing this way, like that's going to give me a taste for what I prepare for later on. So he did that. And then throughout the summer, I just stayed committed to running. But then I also got another coach, Lauren from Misfit Mountain, really to like round out like physicality. Like I recognized, okay, I'm doing well at running, but like I need some direction and some coaching on strength training and especially navigating nutrition as I'm getting into these long runs and like trying to do more out on trails and things of that sort. So Lauren from Misfit Mountain began coaching me there, and then yeah, Blake put together I think we had a 14-week plan leading out from Monkey, and it it went so well. Part of it was like a a plan to do it in such a way where like goal number one, don't get injured. And I had like little things kind of flare up and I got a little like I had to like dial it back a couple of times, but every time like I came back feeling a little stronger. And by the time race day came along, I think my like the my thoughts of what the flying monkey was going to be for me and what it became for me had changed so much because in the beginning it was like bucket list item. I want to run this marathon. Check this off my list. I've done it. I've conquered it. Like I've done this thing. And then as I got closer to it, it became like I don't know, like bittersweet that this thing would come and go and that it would be gone. And I was kind of like mourning that and thinking like I mean, this process is really like this process leading up to this is really what I've wanted and I've yearned for. Like this is the good stuff. And so um I began to think like, okay, what does it look like if for me if the monkey just becomes like this milestone moment, but it's building to this next thing and what might that next thing be? And so I began to kind of silently like have a 50K planned for 3 weeks after the monkey, but not really sharing it because people would be like, yeah, that's like I didn't want the reasonable feedback and like whatever. So but I began to kind of frame it that way. And so yeah, when I went into the monkey, I went in feeling strong, but also with this approach of I want this to be kind of like this peak training moment for this bigger 50K trail race that's 3 weeks after the monkey. Um, and I will turn my sights fully on that once the monkey's over. Uh, but right now, I'd say my sights going into the monkey were like 65%, 70% on monkey day, with like 25, 30% of my vision, remaining vision focused on that next thing. So yeah, that kind of led me up to such a long way to get there, Sarah. But that's really what got me to the monkey and like day of.
That's such a thank you for sharing your extraordinary journey of transformation. And also, if you're watching this as opposed to listening on a podcast, you may have seen my face when Ryan shared like this was last like 2024, the beginning, because from when we first connected on Facebook, it was truly like it feels like this has been such a deep and rich part of your life forever. So it's been an abundant year,
Yeah,
to say the least, in all of your, I don't know, like running accomplishments or the things you've experienced through running, through the trails, through your community. It's just been a big year. So I was like, wait, a year ago? Like I thought
yeah,
this,
yeah, I know.
um, and so, yeah, that was incredible. And thank you for sharing to that. And I also appreciate, well, the value of someone, the coach who believes in you more or who can see your capabilities when when you don't, or as much. And then also naming like the monkey as a milestone, and you're just going to keep continuing these milestones on your journey.
Yeah,
That said, and you can, take or leave,
sure.
a first marathon, deserves like a pretty great celebration, not as the end all be all. So
Yeah.
the question I asked, or I stopped myself from asking when like we first connected this morning via Zoom, was how are you feeling?
Hmm.
So you shared that you felt strong going into the race. You ran like so strong, first marathon or not. And yeah, just all the things. But
Yeah.
have you been able to pause and celebrate? And then how are you feeling today? And today, as we speak, it's Wednesday, right? So it's like
Yeah.
3 days out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how are you?
I
Did
do.
you celebrate?
Uh-huh.
And how are you feeling?
Yeah. I'm still celebrating. I've recognized I actually don't do a great job of celebrating things in my life Like I just don't take time to stop and like, throw a party for the good things. Even though it's something I think is really important. So this is maybe like too gross, but you know, um, they had flying monkey like temporary tattoos, and I stuck one on my wrist the day or on my hand the day of, and it's still there. Today's Wednesday, Sarah. I've not yet washed it off. So like there's this like I'm celebrating with the stink of an unwashed hand a little bit too. Like um yeah, I'm still enjoying the fact of not just completing it and like it being something that like I'd set out to do, but enjoying like reflecting on the whole experience of it, um, and like how I did during it and like why I was doing it during the race. Because one of my thoughts was like I'm going to get into the race and like things are going to be very uncomfortable. I'm going to get to this place where I just want it to be over. I fully expected that. Like, I just want this to be over. Will I end it and be like, never again, never another marathon? Like, that was traumatic. Like, well, I just didn't really know how I would feel. And so on the back end, immediately after the race and the finish line, I was sitting there and I thought, like, how am I feeling right now? Like, what am I right now repulsed by the idea of ever doing another one? Like, how do I feel? And there was this sense in which I was a little sad that the actual marathon was over. Like, I almost still wanted to be out there grinding a little bit, although very relieved to be laying on the ground. But I almost still wanted to be in that. And I knew, okay, I'm yearning for that experience. So bell ringer 50K at Montgomery Bell in 19, 20 days at that point, that's happening. Like I already knew at that point that's going down. And I'm like, this is going to be kind of like this is a milestone and I'm on this journey. So I was a little like fearful of how I might react emotionally right after. Would I be like repulsed by doing another one? And it was quite the opposite. Where, yeah. So then, celebration. I did not partake in the food truck. I was kind of struggling like to eat anything there for maybe an hour after. Once kind of system settled down, it also made me really amazed at some of the people who were eating and drinking every single thing all along the course and still running like incredibly fast. Like a new level of respect for some of those folks. It's amazing. So yeah, we one of another one of our some of our Achilles community was there, Julie, and Julie ran the full marathon as well. And so her and her husband Jerry, like we were talking to them, and Jerry said that one of their favorite things, like Julie's one of her favorite things, is like a post marathon cheeseburger at Cletus's, and it's like Cletus's haven't been there, so we like planned, okay, we're gonna leave here, we're gonna go to Cletus's and get cheeseburgers and fries. So that's what we did. Like me and wife and kids, we went, sat down, enjoyed. I still couldn't eat a whole lot. Like I kind of munched through what I could, and then later on when we got home, we like I think that's when I started feeling like, okay, I'm ready for like more food. I'm starting to feel whatever. And I was like, I kind of want to celebrate in like a comfy place. And so in here in Springfield, Tennessee, we have BS Brew Works. It's like our local brewery, and we have our joggers and loggers running group that meets up there on Thursdays. And joggers and loggers, they've quickly become part of my community and tribe. And so there was something very comforting about, I want to go to BS Brew Works and eat their barbecue sliders and eat their flatbread pizza with my kids and my family, because it's a very like family oriented place. Like there's board games for the kids. So, and there's this like the most comfiest couch in all of Robertson County, Tennessee, is in the brewery. So we went up there, got our food, hung out, watched the end of a football game, and just kind of like soaked it in and enjoyed the softness. Had my feet up, and that was Sunday. Monday, I checked in with Lauren, my strength coach, and said, "Hey, talk to me about the next 24, 48 hours. Like, make sure I'm on track here for recovery and stuff." And so she gave me like our plan of stretching and movement and when and where to like have my feet up. So I kept my feet up most of Monday, and then felt like I just needed to move my hips and my back and everything. So took my trekking pole and like walked down the street, walked back up the street real slow, just enjoying how I felt. And yesterday, I told my wife that I was surprised at how good I feel. And I've been in those situations where you've got delayed onset muscle soreness, and like every time you sit down or stand up or move, like you just can't. Everything hurts really bad. And I was kind of worried that like old ankle injuries and stuff might flare up. But Sarah, I feel so good. Like I'm itching to get out for a nice, easy run, and I have on my schedule tomorrow a like a walk with a little intermittent jogging based on feel, and that's so I'm gonna enjoy that. Yeah. So I feel fantastic.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. And also just that feeling after, like, wait, it's over? Like, with
Yeah.
that same like um relief. And
Yeah.
so I'm
Yeah.
really happy to hear that you were able to celebrate and share this experience with, again, your family and your community. Um, I'm just so grateful. And I knew that I shared this when we first connected this morning. I knew I wanted to talk to you. I'm glad you mentioned the group Achilles, because I did want to make sure that they were mentioned because that's such
Yeah.
an incredible organization. Um, but I also knew I wanted to talk to you after your race, not necessarily, and like I shared, not for a race recap episode, but because number one, I knew that you're going to have an extraordinary race from when like even the interest was peaked. I'm like, oh, this is like a perfect fit. Um, but just that whole, I'll try to do your order, mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical,
Mhm.
the what you're basking in afterwards from the marathon. Not that you completed your first marathon, but all of that transformation from the experience. So I knew I wanted to chat afterwards, and I'm glad we did it like right after where everything is super fresh. I am so
Same.
grateful for just the opportunity to have this time and this space to converse. And my last question, you shared like your kind of future like next races. Is there anything I didn't ask that you might want to share, or something you would want to say to someone either
Uh-huh.
as a blind or low vision
Yeah.
athlete or runner, or
Yeah.
someone in that place that you described so well where you were just at a bottom
Mm-hmm.
mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, anything that you would want to say
Yeah.
to someone?
Thank you, Sarah. Uh, I think we all want to, we all get inspired by other people, and we all uh, enjoy having that inspiration of how like other people are doing things, and then letting that be contagious to us. And I think I would encourage myself and encourage others that, the greatest inspiration for yourself is kind of the potential of what's inside you that you have the ability to unlock. And so, um, for anyone who's like on the cusp of wanting or like pulling the trigger to do something that they don't know that they're capable of doing, that's exactly what we need to pursue, is the thing that seems audacious and requires a heavy dose of humility when you fail at doing it. Um, and so, yeah, I encourage anybody, regardless of ability, but I think certainly those who face barriers of access and opportunity to doing certain things, um, like surprise yourself by the level of performance you don't know that you can do, and then let that inspire you, and it'll inspire others around.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. Again, thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to connect today. I also want to give a big thank you to our listeners, listening community out there. And as always, wishing everyone peace, power, and presence today.